Zack Johnson, when he was introducing Max Homa earlier, like talking about the actual automatic qualifier picks, he referred to Max Homa as the prom king.
Max Homa, 2 wins this year, rookie Ryder Cupper, but played some high-level international golf. He's our prom king.
That's a prom I don't want to go to. Folks, it is official. JT has been selected by Zack Johnson. All the picks are out. Yesterday's post by The Guardian apparently was a leak, though someone in my comment section was accusing me of clickbait because this person has poor reading comprehension. You know who you are. Get in the last video. Look in the comment section. I called them out. I'm sick of the attitude, dude. So now all 5 of them, as per The Guardian, were picked along with Sam Burns, Scotty Scheffler's best buddy for life. So let's get immediate reactions. Myself and my man, Jake Span Golf, have both watched the significant portion of the Ryder Cup selection video, and we will break down what made sense, none of it, and what didn't make sense, the whole thing. Jake Span Golf.
This was obviously like one of the weirdest things ever to watch because Zack Johnson. So they have the phone call kind of situation going in where they have all the 6 guys that are captain's picks already on Zoom. So they already knew. I mean, it wasn't like any big reveal kind of thing, which I hate that. I hate when there's an announcement like this and there's not an actual reveal. It's just a crowning of what's already been decided. The order in which the guys were announced was very weird. Obviously, one of the picks we hard don't agree with. And then we also have just him using the most bland and lame, kind of comments I've ever seen about players. Because he has to he's going through this announcement for his captain's picks, and there's like, well, he's very versatile, and he gives a lot of pairing options. Pairing options? These guys are not doing pairing options. You're picking their boyfriend. That's who you're picking. We already know that you're picking X person because they're tied to X person, not because you want to have like 5 different people you play with them.
Jake Span Golf, completely on point. This is like the werewolf movie where you see the werewolves in person or in werewolf form in the first 2 minutes of the movie. You don't have to wait 40 minutes and 50 minutes in. So immediately, I know this is kicking off at 10 a.m. I'm in the dog park. I find out where it is. I see all the little faces on the screen. That's how you know it's happening right now. And I look to see who's been picked. Bottom right, there's Justin Thomas. I'm furious. But the first guy, obviously, was Sam Burns. So Sam Burns is on there, and now we start seeing some of the irrationality of the rationality. Because Zack Johnson points out, hey, this guy was good at, the match play tournament this year. But then you look at his President's Cup record. I think Sam Burns was like 0-3-1. So when it benefits the players, they focus on the good parts, but then they ignore like his President's Cup record. But then later for another guy, they'll tout his President's Cup record. That's JT. They'll throw it into the Ryder Cup mix and show him great overall, even though JT was horrible at the WGC match play tournament. So he didn't even compete this past year. It's literally, you say this and then it contradicts this guy. And then you say this for this guy and it contradicts what's for the rationale for the other guy. Let's go to the next guy. We got Sam Burns, who obviously got on there due to his friendship with Scotty Scheffler. They'll be paired up together. We already know that now. Next guy.
Next guy was announced was Ricky Fowler, if I believe. Is that correct? And it was very interesting to me because going off of the trend of where people were announced in the field, it was very interesting to notice how the order was set up. We have Sam Burns was mentioned first. So Sam Burns was obviously, in my opinion, then picked for Scotty Scheffler. Going forward, then, is that what's going down the whole way down the list? Now, it was weird because based off that type of assumption, I would think that Ricky Fowler was getting picked to pair alongside, Wyndham Clark more. But in Ricky Fowler's portion of the interview after they talked about him, he mentioned Brian Harman 3 times. So it sounds more like they're picking him to play with Brian Harman.
Do you see his abysmal Ryder Cup record?
Well, Ricky Fowler's never been somebody who exerts pressure on opponents. This is evident from his abysmal 54-hole lead record. He's not somebody who has a dominance factor. He's not somebody who grinds your opponents into the dust. He's not Brooks Koepka. He's not Dustin Johnson. There's nothing about him that necessarily makes you shit your pants.
Zack Johnson had to reach out of the top 12. He had to go to the 13th position, I believe, to get Ricky Fowler, to bring a guy onto the team who's played multiple Ryder Cups and has something like a 3-7 record or a 3-5. He's got a serious losing record. Is that the kind of experience you want? Of course, Zack Johnson then touts it as leadership and team chemistry. It's all gibberish at this point. Let's go to, you just mentioned him, Brooks Koepka makes the team.
I was very happy about this. We were talking about this on yesterday's video about how I really didn't think he was going to get picked. And it was purely politics. I mean, it was politics and also just, it was much easier to pick Brooks 3 months ago. The way Brooks has played the last month and a half, and with the birth of his child, I really thought that he was going to they were going to find ways to use those as an opportunity to just kind of close the door on him. But the fact that he's here and the fact that he is just a dominant person, somebody who, when he's in the mood, he's hard to hang with. I wouldn't be surprised if they throw him in singles play against Rahm. So this is somebody who I'm excited to see out there and excited to see who he pairs with. I don't know who he pairs with in this team, but who do you think, Vance?
I'm not sure who they pair Brooks Koepka with. When you have a long hitter like him who can win majors, you can literally pair him with anyone. You could also try that super team of remember when it didn't work out well, Tiger and Phil. You could do, if you imagine you paired him with Wyndham Clark, just bombers, and you just bring in that wow factor. He can pair with anyone. The guy is a gamer. But what's interesting about Brooks Koepka is that when they went to the interview portion, the second or third guy, I think it's actually the second guy, asked him about, how LIV factored into it. And then Zack Johnson at some point says, Brooks Koepka earned his spot on the team. So he actually kind of gave him credit that, he's viewing him as earning it on the team, whereas he immediately has to use other rationale for JT.
To me, it really was just a weird overall scenario of just how close Brooks Koepka was on points, despite having almost zero events that he's eligible for. And to do that was really impressive in and of itself. It just showcases, hey, I'm here, I'm strong, let's do this. I like that Zack Johnson said that, the earning factor. But again, Zack Johnson says he earned his spot, but then he goes and picks a guy like JT who has zero business being there. And not only that, we'll get to JT in a little bit more, but I mean, dude looked like he got hit by a railroad bus.
Let's go right into Morikawa, who was the next guy. Morikawa hasn't won in 2 years. He blew a big lead at the Century Tournament Champions this year. I think he had a 6-stroke lead going to the final round. Mm-hmm. Can't get it done nowadays. Started strong at the Tour Championship, shooting a 61 and 64, then is 5 over on the weekend. Definitely a shaky putter. Hasn't gotten it done. And then you have to think, who did they pick Morikawa over? How about Lucas Glover, 2 wins in the last 4 events? Or Keegan Bradley, 2 wins over the entire year. So you're passing on guys who can now win for a guy who is kind of more of a name brand because of his 2 majors. And obviously he is in terms of voice and personality, the Tiger Woods heir apparent.
And that's so weird to see that Morikawa is the heir apparent in that scenario. The U.S. really didn't have somebody who just stood out as being the dominant person this year. It was all over the place. 1 month it looked like Scheffler. 1 month it looked like Rahm. For a while it looked like Max Homa was going to be up there, during the fall series. It's been just all over the place. Colin Morikawa is not somebody that I'm putting blame on for being there. He's somebody who is perfectly rational to pick. He's not the JT pick. The JT pick is the one that you're just like, what the hell, bro? Like, what's going on? That's the one that makes me scratch my head. And maybe I'm just not thinking it through fully enough, but Morikawa seems completely rational. He's playing good golf. And honestly, you can't 100% just put it all on wins. We all talk about wins. Wins are one of those things that we always give credit for. But for instance, this past weekend on the Asian Tour, they're playing at St. Andrews Bay. Eugenio Chikara and Matt Jones go for 10 playoff holes. Now, obviously, at the end of the day, only one person gets the win. But in my opinion, both should be given credit for wins. And that's one of the things about golf is that we don't ever remember the runner-up. The runner-up is forgotten in history. And that's where it kind of gets kind of crazy. Morikawa is a solid, consistent player, so I have zero problem with him being there. The bigger reason why we have a problem with him being there is simply because Keegan Bradley and Lucas Glover aren't there. But I don't lay that at Morikawa's feet. I lay that at Zack Johnson being a simp and wanting to keep the boy band together.
In terms of the boy band, next guy up, Jordan Spieth. You think he's this superstar Ryder Cupper guy, right? I believe he's 0-2-1 in the singles portion. So what do? They talk about his 71% win percentage in the 4-ball or the foursome format so that he can then immediately, before JT speaks, talk about, hey, this, he's lucky to be paired with a great guy. That's kind of the intro you go to. Let's go right into JT, who Jordan Spieth on cue kind of softball pitches it over to him that way by saying, hey, this 71% foursome record, that's this guy right here.
And I mean, that's the only reason JT could possibly be considered picked right in this situation is that, Spieth was like, I'm not going without my lover. That's really what it is, man. It's so stupid too how it's like that. That's not how it should be. It shouldn't be, hey, Spieth, who's in the top 10, but not really a strong top 10 candidate, didn't win this year. Hey, we're putting you on the team, and we're trying to figure out who to pair you with. Well, you gotta get my bestie. I can't get my head around this, guys, because it just seems like rational thought just went out the window here. Spieth and JT, yeah, they make for great conversation and cameos and all the other stuff. But at the end of the day, they're more dominant in President's Cup than Ryder Cup.
Well, in terms of them being more dominant in President's Cup than Ryder Cup, look at last year's President's Cup team. You had guys on the last four no one's ever heard of before in the President's Cup for the international team. So you're kind of beating up on the underdogs. So what? The fact is you got JT playing with Spieth again, and I can't believe that they put together the holy trinity of boy band golf: Fowler, Spieth, and JT. I thought they would take Fowler and leave JT home because you're not going to have all three of them. They need to have Smiley Kaufman as an assistant captain at this point.
This is clearly a vanity contest. If you're literally using that analogy for your Ryder Cup picks and selection, now granted, Max Homa automatically qualified on the last event. By the way, the very last event is how he automatically qualified. But that's what he used for his analogy. That's just no.
It's weird now because they open up the panel, they open up the questions, and the first question is in relation to just a month ago, July 28th, Freddie Couples came out and said that Cameron Young was on the team. So now the first reporter guy asks, hey, Zack Johnson, what about Cameron Young and Freddie Couples? Because Freddie Couples said he'd be on the team. And Zack Johnson's response was, that was a long time ago. It was just a month ago. And Freddie Couples said that in jest. He said it in jest. He didn't say it in jest. This was the headlines that Cameron Young is on the Ryder Cup team. There's nothing humorous about that. There's no reason to put that out there. Do you think now, remember Cameron Young played in the Saudi International, and if you look at Saudi International's leaderboards from the past, a lot of these guys ended up on LIV. And there's always been rumors about Cameron Young. Do you think with this kind of, as Billy Horschel would define it, because he defines everything as a slap in the face, it's the only phrase he knows, with this Billy Ho-esque slap in the face, does Cameron Young go to LIV next year? Does he sign on the dotted line? And there's a couple other guys who might be considering this, do this, what I consider Ryder Cup injustice.
Yeah, that's one of the hot topics right now on the internet right now is, if you're Keegan Bradley or you're Cam Young, what are you doing looking in? Do you take this as an affront on your character? Do you take this as an affront on your person? Because this is how much the tour values you, that they will take the boy band over you, that they will take the guys who well, we've invested too much money into marketing JT's face and Jordan Spieth's face that we can't not take them. For instance, Zach Johnson during the interview, he said, well, you just don't leave JT at home. JT is not your tote bag poodle, and you're not Paris Hilton. Okay, you can leave JT at home. If he didn't earn his way there, you can leave him at home. And in all honesty, being left off of the team, I think, would be the correct motivation for Justin Thomas to get his shit together. Because now you're saying, hey, you didn't handle your business. Get it fixed. But with this type of behavior from Zach Johnson, we're rewarding mediocre play because you're a celebrity. If I'm Cam Young, I just say this. Pardon my French, guys. I don't like cussing on here too much, but F this. I'm going somewhere where they care.
Well, 2 points there. Point number one, does Keegan Bradley, because he has that relationship with Phil Mickelson, is he now hitting him up to join the High Flyers?
I would. I mean, Keegan Bradley was somebody who, if I remember correctly, he had already mentioned a few months back that he was pissed off that he wasn't a part of the Delaware meetings, the infamous Delaware meetings where they decided elevated event structures and stuff like that for next year. So he was already pissed off that he wasn't a part of those conversations to begin with. So this could be the impetus that really just breaks the camel's back. Could he go to the High Flyers? Maybe. But you're right. This could be the thing that makes Cameron Young and Keegan Bradley just say, fine, we don't want to be associated with you guys anymore.
Point two is, I think we've touched on it, especially with your quote from Zach Johnson about Max Homa being the prom king. There was a recent article put out, I think it was like by a Golf Week or some other golf publication, and it was just criticizing the fact that it really has just become like this popularity contest. And you can't highlight it any more than just having Zach Johnson obviously refer to Max Homa as the prom king. Do you think that it's time that we go back to the old format where maybe you only have 2 captains picks rather than 6 and 6?
Yeah, and the idea of captain's picks are not to protect your boyfriend. The captain's pick idea is to make adjustments for the player that's in form right now. That was the idea behind captain's picks.
Yes, sir.
And that was the thought behind captain's picks. But Zach Johnson, in his picks, has completely proven that it is not about, at least with him as a captain, it's not about who's in form. It's about who has had the most marketing influence behind them. And that's pathetic.
Well, it's funny because the third guy who asked the question, I think it was Dave Shupak, asks about JT specifically, and he asked it in a very straightforward fashion of how did you factor in JT's form since, let's say, the British Open and the fact that he didn't make the FedEx Cup playoffs. And at this point, Zach Johnson doesn't talk about earning anything anymore. He goes into all the other intangibles, the leadership, locker room, etc.
Which I hate that because when they talk about leadership in the locker room, I kind of want to kick him in the nuts whenever he talks like that. Because the leader in the locker room is supposed to be you. You're the captain. You're picking a bunch of guys in their 20s and 30s. All right? There is no leader amongst that. It's not like you're picking Patrick Mahomes to go in there and be your quarterback. Everybody has equal position on the team. Your worst putter is your number one player. Okay, there is no Tiger Woods factor. There is no absolute dominant player out there. There is just 12 guys that you're selecting, and they're all relatively the same age, by the way. I think the age spread is like the youngest is like 25, 24, that's 26, something like that. It's Morikawa, and then you have. I can't think off the top of my head, but I mean, Koepka's probably Koepka is like 30, 32, 33. What Harman's the
Harman
oldest?
is 36.
36. That's your oldest guy. There is no leadership in the locker room. The leader in the locker room is the captain and the vice captain. So why are you talking like that? That doesn't matter.
The second interview question, I think it was Michael Bamberger. Is he associated with Shipnuck at all? I don't know. So, well, forget it. You got Michael Bamberger, and he wants to bring up the LIV topic about whether, Bryson or these other guys on LIV were contacted. And Zach Johnson is just saying, it was a very straightforward question. Instead of just saying, no, he had to go into this whole spiel about I only went down 26 spots on the points list to contact people.
And the sad thing about that is whether you're a LIV person or not, whether you like LIV or not, there were legitimately 5 players on LIV that should have been at least in the conversation for selection, whether you're a LIV person or not. We got Brooks Koepka, which is impressive. I was surprised. You have Dustin Johnson, who really hasn't been super consistent this year, but still is a dominant player. Still won this year on the LIV Tour. And then you have Taylor Gooch, who's been on fire this year. 3 LIV wins, all 3 of them overseas. Just dominant out there, winning in tough courses and tough conditions, dominating. You have Patrick Reed, who's been consistent in majors, consistent in the European Tour when he played in the European Tour last fall, consistent in LIV Golf. Hasn't picked up any wins in the last 2 years, but at the same time, just been constantly racking up top 5 appearances. And then you have Bryson DeChambeau, who got back in the winner's circle, looking great, looking lean, has the name recognition clout that you need, apparently, to get on the boy band team out there. Better not even call this the U.S. Ryder Cup team. Just might as well call it the Backstreet Boys. But Bryson DeChambeau goes out, and as you pointed out, what was the tweet? He shot a 119. Go for it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You tweeted out how you can shoot 119 and win at some tournaments and do great in majors. Or you could shoot 165 in your last major and miss all the cuts, miss the FedEx playoffs, and still make the team.
I probably retweeted that. That is not my original tweet.
Gotcha. But yeah, that's the idea, is that Bryson DeChambeau played on fire. 119 in a weekend is insane. And for Zack Johnson to act like he didn't even recognize this player's existence, I get it. He's still playing on tour himself, so he's not on the couch eating potato chips watching golf all week. But at the end of the day, this was not, if they weren't at least in the conversation, this was not actual selection. This was just a popularity contest amongst the PGA.
Folks at home, what do you think about JT officially getting picked? I know right now, hell hath frozen over. Pigs are flying. We've divided the U.S. Ryder Cup team fan base in terms of those who are pro-U.S. team or pro-U.S. team except for JT.
I hate for this right now because we literally have a situation, Pants, where you have 11 guys that you feel like belong there or at least can be argued there reasonably. And then you have this guy, JT, who is purely getting in there for all the wrong reasons. And if you looked, did you notice just how bad JT looked on camera this morning? I mean, granted, it's not a beauty contest, but like all the other guys looked rested, looked excited, looked ready to go. And then JT looks like he just, threw up eight bottles of Purell.
JT looked like he's going through a midlife crisis at age 30.
Yes. I mean, granted, we can all go through midlife crises. I mean, I'm not saying that we're immune to that or above that or anything of that nature, but we're not getting on the Ryder Cup team this week.
Folks, subscribe, share, and like.